Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video or another episode of our financial intelligence classes. Now, if you want to get control of your money, or if you want to stop living paycheck to paycheck, then there is one thing that you can do. There is only one thing that you can do, and that is coming up with a budget. Coming up with a budget. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important tool towards controlling of your money, or the most important tool towards stopping living paycheck to paycheck. Now, for beginners, I'm going to show you a 5-step ways of how you can come up with a simple budget, simple and clear. It doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to ease it up, and I'm going to show you through a 5-step easy step on how you can come up with a budget. If you are a beginner, or if you don't know what a budget is, I'm going to explain to you 5 steps in which you can do that. And if you already have a budget, you can also watch this particular video to see whether your budget is still working. So ladies and gentlemen, in this particular video, we are coming up with a budget, or 5 steps on how you can come up with a budget for the beginners. If you're a beginner, and if you're not a beginner or you already have a budget, see how you can actually enhance or improve your budget. So ladies and gentlemen, this is another reason to stay subscribed in this particular channel. If you're watching me for the first time, or if you're seeing me for the first time, my name is Sir John Mweri. I'm a professional accountant with Ex-Finop Accountancy and Insurance Consultant. Now, let's get to the business of the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to get rid of this and introduce my first point on: if you are a beginner, you want to get in control of your money, you want to stop living paycheck to paycheck, you want to stop finding yourself that at the middle of the month you don't have anything. You want to stop this habit of impulse buying. You want to stop wondering, oh, where does my money get, or where does my money go? So ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what you're supposed to do to stop that particular behavior. And the first point, ladies and gentlemen, is knowing your income. Knowing your income. Knowing your income. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very simple here. Now, for you to come up with a budget, you have to understand how much you earn. Remember, different people earn differently. And this one is going to be based on how you earn. You can earn daily, you can earn hourly, you can earn monthly, you can earn whichever. So weekly, and so on and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, you need to know how much you earn, or knowing your income. Someone can earn 20,000 per hour. Someone can earn 20,000 per hour. Another person can earn 50,000 per month. Another person can earn 50,000 per month. Another person can earn 50,000. That is 5,000 weekly. These people are so different. You realize this person who is earning 20,000 per hour, and we have 24 hours in a day. We have 24 hours in a day, and we have how many days in a month? We have 30 days. So you can multiply and see how much this person is earning. So the budget of this particular person cannot be the same as the budget of this particular person, and cannot be the same as the budget of this particular person. This person who is earning 50,000 per month, that is 50K per month. All right. But you can realize here, someone who is earning 20,000 per hour, and then you multiply by 24 hours, and then you multiply, or probably if this person is not earning 24 hours, probably you can say, how many hours in a day? You can say, let's say 8 hours or 12 hours, like that. So, and so on and so on, or 16 hours like that. So you can say here 24 is not realistic. Let's put 15 hours. Let's put 15 hours. 24 is not realistic because you need time to sleep. All right. So 5,000 weekly, we have 4 weeks in a month, so you can multiply here by 4, and then you can get, this is approximately 20,000. So the budget of these different, this is person 1, this person 1, person 2, and person 3. The budgets of person 1, person 2, and person 3 cannot be the same. So ladies and gentlemen, you need to find out how much you earn. You need to know your income. And when it comes to knowing your income, is all about knowing how you earn, where you earn, and how much you earn. So that, because remember, what we are saying here is that you cannot budget what you don't have. You only budget what you have. There are people who budget what they don't have. Even when you don't have that income, you have already started saying, oh, I'm going to buy that particular car, and you don't have the money to buy that particular car. That means you are referring to borrowing money. So ladies and gentlemen, budgeting is very important. And the first step for the beginners, if you are watching me here, is knowing how much you have to know your income and accept it. If it's 10,000 per month, if it's 1,000 per day, that is approximately 30,000 per month. You need to know your income, how much you earn. All right. So the moment you know how much you earn, ladies and gentlemen, you go to step number 2. You track your spending. You track your spending. Remember, when you are doing all this, when you are knowing how much you earn, oh, me as Sir John, I normally earn 1,000 per day, or I earn 1,500, or I earn 2,000 per day, or probably I earn 50,000 per month. So I've already known what I normally earn. Now, the second thing that I'm supposed to do, remember, when you are at your step number 2, you have not yet created a budget. You have not yet created a budget. Here you're just speculating and doing your due diligence here. So you are tracking your spending on step number 2. Now you know how much you earn. Now you want to go to the step number 2 of identifying your spending or tracking your spending. And ladies and gentlemen, tracking your spending is very easy. First, you can use an Excel. This is like coming with a list of or listing on how you normally spend your money. You can say how much you spend on rent, how much you spend on rent. You can say you can list how much you spend on food. You can list on how much you spend on food. You can list on how much you spend on entertainment. You can list on how much you spend on entertainment. You can list on how much you spend on family and friends. All right. Family and friends. So rent, food, entertainment, family and friends. You can list on how you see. When you're tracking your budget or when you're tracking your spending, you need to come up with a list of how you spent your money in 1 month. So here we are talking about 1 month expenditure. So you write down how you spent your you write down your 1 month expenditure on how you spent your money in that particular month. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, rent, how much you paid on rent, on food, entertainment, family and friends, how much you paid on transport. All right. You can write on how much you spent on transport. This is a list on how you spend. Now, write on how much you spend on credit and internet. Yeah, credit and internet. How much you spent on credit and internet. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also include here subscriptions. All right, subscription. There are people who like using subscriptions. Probably you have subscribed to Netflix and so on and so. I don't know whether this one is going to fall on entertainment, but it is just a subscription because this is money that you have subscribed somewhere. It's money moving away from your pocket. You have, even if it's even a single cent, a shilling, 5 shillings, you have to include it here to see how much you spent. Credit, rent, food, entertainment, family and friends. How much did you give them? When you went out on that bash, on that night out with friends and so on and so on, how much did you spend on that particular month? Remember, here you are tracking your expenditure. And when you track your expenditure, you have to include everything in that expenditure. On transport, how much have you been using from moving around from one point to another, probably from your place to your job and so on, traveling to home and so on and so on. And how often do you travel to home? This is tracking your expenditure. Credit and internet. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot do without internet. How often do you buy bundles, Safaricom bundles? And if you buy a lot, Safaricom bundle, how can you cut that particular cost? Ladies and gentlemen, because the reason why you are tracking your expenditure is actually the reason why you are doing all this is knowing, you want to know where you can cut the budget. You want to know where you can cut the expenditure. For example, when you realize that I'm spending a lot of money on credit and internet, then you ask yourself, how do I cut this budget? How do I stop using a lot of money on credit and internet? For example, I can install Wi-Fi in my home. For example, I can, instead of buying credit to call people, I can use WhatsApp. Once I am online, I can use WhatsApp to call people. All right, I only buy credit where necessary. I can stop buying Safaricom bundles because they can be a little bit expensive, and then you install Wi-Fi in your place. Then when it comes to transport, if you realize that you are using a lot of money on transport, then you can say, oh, I'm traveling a lot. Then you can ask yourself, where did I go? I went to point number A, point number B, point number C, D, E, like so on and so. So you say, the reason why I went here, it's because of this and this and this. So it was not necessarily for me to go there. Then if you have to travel, then you can come up with a schedule of plan on how you can be traveling, just to make sure that you have saved the cost. Ladies and gentlemen, if you realize that you are spending a lot of money on family and friends, if you realize that you are spending a lot of money on family and friends, then you can say, I'll be allocating a specific amount of money on family and friends. For example, if I receive my 50,000, per month as my income, remember we started by knowing your income. If I am earning 50,000, then these people, I can only give them 5,000. And if the 5,000 is over, if I give the family, then friends will not get anything. If I give friends, then the family is not going to get any, because here you don't have to mix emotions with financial intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to be very careful on that. So family and friends, if you realize that your money is going there, you come up with ways or a strategy on how you can cut that particular expenditure. If it's entertainment, you are enjoying a lot, you are going out, you are eating a lot of chicken, you are going for bash, you are enjoying yourself a lot, and actually on your budget, or when you track your expenditure, you realize that a lot of money was used for entertainment purposes. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you can say, I'm going to now budget on entertainment. For example, I'm going to allocate 30% of my income on entertainment, and then once that 30% is over, then I'm not going to allocate any more money. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to tracking your spending or your expenditure, is where you find out that you have used your money in a specific area a lot more than you could have distributed in other areas. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you realize that your entertainment is eating your money, you come up with a strategy on how you can, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot fulfill everything at the same time. For example, you want to buy yourself clothes, you want to take yourself out, you want to go to a vacation on the same month, then it's not going to be possible. And there's when it comes to entertainment, it's controlled by emotions, and we say that emotions and money cannot mix. They don't mix, because when you mix the two, then one will fail. So, ladies and gentlemen, be very careful on that. When it comes to food, are you eating a lot? Then you can allocate. Actually, I came to realize that people don't allocate a lot of money on food. They allocate a lot of money on entertainment, family and friends, transport, and so on, other co-curricular activities other than eating. Actually, people don't eat a lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to rent, now, are you paying the landlord a lot of money more than the anticipated amount? For example, if you're earning 50,000 and you're paying landlord half of what you're earning, that one is not financially intelligent. For example, if you're earning 50K, and you're paying landlord 25K, you see, this one is not making sense, because we normally say that if you want to pay rent, then it should not be more than 30%. It should not be more than 30% of 50K. So if you have to pay rent, if you're earning 50,000 per month, then you only pay 30% of what you're earning here. It should not be more than that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are paying 40%, 50%, 35%, then there is somewhere that you are making a mistake. And actually, if you are paying that 50%, you cut the cost down to probably 30% and see whether you can take that money to somewhere else. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is tracking your expenditure. And this is not going to be easy. You'll have to sit down. You'll have to open your M-Pesa messages. You'll have to go to where you have spent cash. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to list all the items down and see how you spent that money in that particular month, so that it can guide you now on how to come up with a budget. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was my point number 2. That was my point number 2 on the beginner on how to come up with a budget. My point number 3, ladies and gentlemen, is now you create a simple budget. Now you create a simple budget. A simple budget. Now, remember when you are tracking your expenditure, you listed all your items there, how you spent your money in that particular month, how you went about it, and so on and so on. Now, in my point number 3, here is where you are going to now come up with a simple budget. When you are tracking your expenditure, you realized, oh, I'm paying the landlord a lot of money. I'm not supposed to pay landlord a lot of money. Now, here you come, you say, and you can also, now remember you had your expenditure tracking and so on. You can say, now this is adjusted. What am I writing? Adjusted budget. Adjusted budget. You can say, now I was paying landlord half of my income. Now I want to stop paying the landlord half of my income. So you allocate rent. You say rent, I'll be paying 30%. You say that I'll be paying rent 30%. Remember, assuming that you are working with a budget of 50K, or probably you're earning 50,000 per month. Now you say that rent, I'll be paying 30% of that. And then you have to list all the items again. Now, rent, food, transport, you can say rent, food, transport, entertainment. There are people who have kids, so you can say school fees savings. You can talk about family and friends. You can talk about church and welfare. So you need to, a budget, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. A budget is going to include everything, even this item that you are going to buy for 5 shillings is going to include even that. So do not dare omit anything from a budget. So you need to include everything here. If it's food, then make sure that everything is catered on food side. If you are even going to eat out, you are not going to cook in your house. Then you have to make sure that you have included it in the budget. If it's transport, you have to cater for all the transport. If it's a family transport and so on, make sure that you include that amount there. So rent, entertainment, food, and so on. It can be many. You can have a budget depending on your lifestyle. So ladies and gentlemen, this is how now you list your things. Then you divide this amount, and there is the most important thing that you are not supposed to forget when you're coming up with a budget is savings. Remember, it has always been a rule that before you do any payment here, before you pay any bills, the moment you receive your income, that is 50,000, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing is allocating 20% to investments. That one has always been a rule, because that one is meant to eradicate poverty or to remove poverty in our lives and make sure that you have some financial security probably in future. So ladies and gentlemen, before you even create your budget, the item number 1 in your budget is savings or investments, 20%, and then the rest of the remaining amount. So for example, if you're working with a budget of 50,000, then your investments or savings should be 20% times 50K, and that one is approximately, where is my calculator? Here it is. So you can say 0.20 times 50,000, then we are talking about 10,000, 10K should be put in an investment account or a savings account. So whatever you'll be budgeting here, whatever you'll be allocating in all these things, you'll know how to allocate them, because it depends on the income that you're earning. Whatever you'll be allocating here is 40,000 Kenya shillings. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are a beginner and you are watching me, then this is how you come up with a budget. First of all, allocate savings 20% to your investments, then the rest. And we normally have a very simple rule of budgeting. We normally call it 50 to 30 to 20 rule. And we normally say that 50% should be allocated to your daily needs and wants. No, your daily needs. For example, rent, food, transport, and so on should take 50% of your income. So for example, if it's your 50,000, then 25,000 should go to all those things: your food, your rent, your transport, and so on. Now out of that 25%, or out of that 50%, that is 25,000, you will know what to pay rent, you will know what to pay food, you will know what to allocate on transport, entertainment, and so on and so. Then 30% should go to your wants. You know, you have to make sure that you are happy in life. You have to make sure that you have entertained yourself a little. If it's family, you'll have to take them to out and so on and so. So that is why 30% is there. 30% of that particular income, you are supposed to make sure you buy your family a nice foods, you buy your family nice clothes, you take them out for a vacation and so on and so on. So, but you have to choose one thing at a time, so that because you cannot be able to fulfill everything. So ladies and gentlemen, and the last one, 20%, is what we have just talked about, that is savings, and should be listed as number one of your expenditure. So ladies and gentlemen, when you're coming up with a budget, first you have to list your, this is the structure of how a budget is going to look like. For those who have never seen a budget, this is the structure of how so you have to say income here. Income, oh, I'm earning 50k. Then you less savings, which is include 20%. That is 20%. That is 10k. So you are going to be left with 40k, and then now you can now allocate all other items here. All other items you can allocate there. You say rent, you say food, you say whatever, depending on how you're going to allocate your budget. You are the clever, depending on the amount that you normally earn each and every month. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how you create a simple budget. You create a simple budget. Now, ladies and gentlemen, going to my point number 4, after you create a simple budget, once you have created that simple budget, there is always a problem. There is always a problem of sticking to your budget. Sticking to your budget. No, stick to your budget. To your budget. Now, once you have created your budget, you have to stick to it. Now, here it calls for self-discipline. You have to discipline yourself. You have to make sure that you have followed your budget to the letter. Because there are some people who are going to create a budget and this one is not helping. And then you find yourself again in the same mess that you're trying to avoid. Remember, you started with knowing your income, you tracked your expenditure, you saw, I am not spending money the way it's supposed to be done. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create a simple budget. And then once you create a simple budget, now are you following your budget? Are you sticking to it? You need to discipline yourself. You say, if I allocated 5,000 to family and friends, once it's over, it's over. I'm not going to back to my savings or my investments and remove what I had saved and then try again to put it to my family. So ladies and gentlemen, you stick to your budget. You have to be disciplined. You have to make sure that you have followed your plan so that you can make sure that you have a smooth financial path. Then lastly, number 5, ladies and gentlemen, you adjust your budget. Adjust your budget accordingly, or let me just when needed. When needed. You adjust your budget when needed. For example, you might say that this particular month I had 1, 2, 3, and 4 expenditure. Then in the second month, I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 expenditure. You realize that there is something that has come up. And remember, in your budget, always remember to include some money for emergencies. For example, some things normally happen and you had not planned for them, and that's why we normally have in the budget, we normally have a clause called miscellaneous. Miscellaneous, I don't know how to write that. Miscellaneous activities is a word, something like that. So that miscellaneous, for example, is to make sure that you have catered for any emergency or any other activity that may come up and you had not planned for it. So ladies and gentlemen, you adjust your budget when needed. If you realize that there is something that for example, if the income changes from 50,000 to 70,000, then it means you need to adjust your budget. If your income goes lower than 50,000, it means that you need to adjust your budget. That's why you're saying you need to adjust your budget when needed. For example, if there are some more expenses that have created themselves, then you need to adjust your budget accordingly. So ladies and gentlemen, creating or coming up with a budget is not scary. It's not scary. It's very simple. It just needs you to sit down, evaluate yourself, and ask yourself, ni kama kujita kamkutano. Ask yourself, what do I need? Is it necessary to spend here? Is it necessary to spend all this money in this particular point? No. Then you come up with a very simple budget on how you can be able to do your personal finance. So ladies and gentlemen, it's not scary. As you can see, it's very simple. You just have to do that, and very soon you are going to realize that you are in control, full control of your money, and you will be happy again that at least even you in your pocket, you stop living paycheck to paycheck. There are some people, once you are paid on first, then by date 15 you have nothing because you didn't have a budget to plan. If you had a budget and you stick to it, then you could be having money up to the last day that you're supposed to be paid. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. That was my 5 points on how to come up with a budget for beginners. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Remember, this is John Mweri, professional accountant with Exfinop Accountancy and Insurance Consultancy. Make sure that you hit the subscription button, hit the notification bells, and also give me a like on this particular video. And if you feel that you want to say anything about this particular video, you can put the comment on the comment section so that you can have our society needed. And most of all, don't forget to share this particular video with your friends. All right? Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was my time. See you on the next video.